Google and somebody else is developing a telephone that the government couldn't even
Apple.
get into.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the counterbalance, and I have a lot of confidence in technology, even with the abusive state. And technology, can counteract this. Oftentimes we would have laws being proposed in Washington that will have, how to solve the problem of getting phone calls that are unsolicited. So we need more federal government regulations to regulate your phone and who can call you when, and have these lists, no call lists. See, I opposed all that because I always believed, and rightfully so, that we can get technology, into our telephone system. We can load a number, and if we don't want to answer, we don't have to. And spamming protection helps us to some degree. So technology by the government is always going to be used against us, but we have to try to get the smart people on our side to make sure the technology protects our liberties.
Case in point, as you know, Congress has tried to pass a bunch of laws about pop-up ads on the internet to get their claws into that. Instead, people just download free pop-up blockers that works perfectly in almost every case. So again, innovation is the answer, not more regulation. I saw a study that came out, I'm sure you saw it from a major university about a month ago, that the U.S. is now 33 worldwide for economic freedom, behind every industrialized nation. I mean, this country is not as free as it used to be.
Nope, and it's going the wrong direction. But what about on television? I don't watch these movies and things, but people who download or set their programs, can't they go back and watch the program and click off? They don't have to listen to the ad. So that's another way that they can serve their own benefit. So, but I still want to be the optimist to say that this technology is about time it's being used for a good reason. And my argument is that for not centuries but thousands of years, all technology has been used for the state in enhanced war. Whether it's jet powers or nuclear energy or whatever, it's always been used to build bigger and worse weapons. And I think now we are moving into an age where we are capable as human beings to take technology and use it to do exactly the opposite.
Yes.
I know that it's early on and it's a big transition and it might be a stretch, but why not? Why not even think that it's a possibility that we can use technology for the advancement of peace and prosperity rather than using it to enhance the power of the state? RonPaulChannel.com. Dr. Ron Paul joins us. I want to ask you about Ebola in a moment, but since we were talking about Al-Qaeda and our government giving them weapons and calling them ISIS-ISIL, Congressman Walter Jones, as you know, has introduced a bill to release 28 pages. I've talked to him and others that have seen it. I've talked to Colonel Schaefer and others. I know you've spoken out now. I mean, clearly it's Saudi Arabia in there that our government knew bare minimum was standing down. What is your view of the 28 pages of the 9/11 report that's been made secret, and what should be done about that? Well, we're doing our very best to galvanize the people who believe that we have a right to see that, and even those people that were involved in investigations, we generally think are part of the establishment. They're saying we should see this too, so that is very, very good. And this should be the whole purpose. Unfortunately, all commissions that I have witnessed generally are there to cover up, the mistakes of government and to protect government agents so they never get blamed for anything or never get punished for anything. So I do everything. I had Walter on the program. We interviewed him on the channel, and we're trying to build up as much pressure. Someday maybe, but, they're going to fight it. But, I don't think it takes a genius to figure this out. They almost, the first thing is I think what government does is almost they encourage, the speculation, about what's going on, and they do this by claiming that that we don't even know what's happening out there, and yet we do. What about right after this thing happened? I remember being stranded in Washington, and I couldn't get out of Washington after 9/11. The airports were a horrendous mess, and then I hear the story. Well, the Saudis got out, the bin Laden family got out, and the FBI never even asked them a question. I mean, if that doesn't make you suspicious of what's going on, nothing will. But we have
yet to learn all the truth of it, and I think that's what our job ought to be, and that is finding out the truth rather than the lies. And of course, my statement has always been that if there is an empire and you tell the truth becomes the treason. So that's why the whistleblowers get into so much trouble. Greenwald and others, they get into big trouble by just trying to tell us the truth.
That's right. Now, continuing a few final questions in the 5 minutes we have left with former Congressman Ron Paul. Ron, looking at the economy, I want to spend a few minutes on that. Then I want to look at Ebola, and then I want to talk about RAND 2016. You're a medical doctor. I'm not a medical doctor, but I know the standard policy was don't bring Ebola patients or smallpox patients into the U.S. Now they're bringing them in by the score. They think they may have someone who got in who has it in Dallas right now. That's CBS News. What is going on here as a medical doctor? What's your take on this?
Well, I think we should have stayed out of it. This is another example of how foreign aid backfires on us. A lot of people dying, serious disease. We're the smartest in the world. We have to go over there. We have a military power that sent 3,000 troops to fight Ebola. And so we send our people over there, and now we know there's an epidemic. But it's interesting. There was a report that showed that this part of the world has put up with epidemics of diseases like this for a long time, and they had certain rules built into their society that if there's a bad disease going around some small town or area, that you quarantine, and it was almost self-quarantine. Don't come in and you don't leave, and it was self-contained. But we go over and we get involved, and we send people in and out. It just behooves me to think about how we mess this up. Besides, I keep thinking, although I know how serious this is, I know a lot of people are dying, but in perspective, how many people, when I think about the problems the world faces and the problems have been compounded by government about malaria, we have a couple 100 million people get malaria every year. We have 1.2 million people die of malaria every year, and it's been compounded by government intervention and the inability to use sprays to kill the mosquitoes. And it isn't, if they were really, really concerned, wouldn't the concern for the people who die from malaria be at least equal to
Isn't it
a couple thousand dying from the Ebola?
I agree. I mean, look, they estimate it could be 40 million people have died since they banned DDT and won't even allow something to come out that's a lot safer. Key point you just made. Ron Paul, in the few minutes we have left here, the economy. I personally travel around the country some and outside the U.S., and just food prices have more than doubled the last year. Everything is so expensive. I can't imagine what it's like for poor people to survive.
Yeah, but you don't believe the government. The government reports CPI, and that's what really counts. If the CPI is not going up, everybody's okay, and their standard of living is going up, and they're not having a problem. The value of the dollar is being held up. Of course, being cynical, but I think the real conspiracy that goes on is to prop up the dollar, and it's not so much conspiring, in some ways, but it is. The big guys and the central banks, everything is dependent on the dollar right now, and the dollar is very strong compared to other dollars because we have promised, and we have acted this way in the crisis that we're going through right now since 08 and 09. We bail out everybody, not only all our banks, but all the central banks of the world and all the governments and all the currencies of the world. So they have an interest. Everybody has an interest in protecting the dollar, but ultimately they won't be able to, and I think we're fast approaching that time.
Well, sure. I mean, I read the basic economics. There's a race worldwide to devalue, so it's like helter-skelter coming down fast but miles above you. It's like a sinking mountain into the ocean. We're on the top, but we're still sinking, and most economists across the board admit there'll be a comeuppance. What does your gut tell you as a student of von Mises who saw this out 30 years ago? How long can this go on?
Well, that's the one thing that Austrian economics teaches, that we can have a pretty good understanding of which way things are going. print a lot of money and the value of the dollar goes down. But they also have an emphasis on the subjective theory of value, and that is there are subjective elements in it. Sometimes even a strong military bestows confidence in a currency. So money supply is important, but the perceptions are important, and the military is important. And so therefore, you don't know when it's going to end. Right now, we have some excitement going on over in Hong Kong. It sort of stirred the markets a little bit. So some morning we'll wake up and there'll be something much bigger than what we just saw at Hong Kong. Maybe it'll be all of China or something that's blowing up economically. And then that will be the end of it, and people will have to realize that you can't live on debt forever, and that's what they believe they can do now. Debt, as far as the Keynesians are concerned, is not a problem. The only problem is if you want to accumulate debt and spend more money. That is the only problem they have to worry about.
All right, I know you've got to go. One last question, RonPaulChannel.com. I'm seeing Ted Cruz, who I like, but I don't trust as much as your son, coming out and saying he's going to focus mainly on foreign policy in his campaign for president. Clearly he's running. We know Rand's running. Rand is focusing on foreign, domestic as well, but I really think focusing on tax cuts, focusing on regulatory rollbacks, getting back to the Constitution, that's what people want. I think Cruz is making a mistake. I mean, what are you advising Rand to do? Because, I mean, I'm just trying to give my 2 cents. Don't you think we need to focus on domestic issues?
Yeah, we do, but I'm not in the business of volunteering my advice. I think he knows where I stand on these issues. But one other thing that he does, without my emphasis, directly at him, but my emphasis over the years, and that is this whole issue of privacy. He's done such a good job on that and showing how abusive our government has been. So I think that is catching on, and I think he's still going to have a strong attraction to the young people, and that's a big issue for them.
What is it like to see your son being the presidential frontrunner for the grand old party? I mean, he is. Well,
it's great, but to me, it's also a mixed bag because I know what the piling on and the yelling and screaming by the enemies and the distortions that go on and what's going to happen, what the establishment will do. So, yes, I'm very pleased not only for him, but I'm pleased to promote the message. But I'm also, thinking about, you're going to get some hard knocks, and no parent would feel good when their kid get hard knocks.
You got to be proud of him, and he's just one more example of the legacy that you continue to put out there of freedom, and I hope others step up and promote liberty, because you're another testament, Ron Paul, to what an individual can do taking action. God bless you. Have a great week coming up, sir.
Thank you, Alex. Bye-bye.
Thank you. There goes former Congressman Ron Paul. Yeah, I mean, Ted Cruz thinks he can score a bunch of points against Obama on ISIS and stuff, and sure, he can. And I like Ted Cruz. I really admire him, and we've only interviewed him once for TV, and I wish I would have, gotten involved with him earlier, because he was very accessible. Then we haven't even really bugged him now. But, his wife was in the Council on Foreign Relations, but I know a lot of people that were in it and got out of it. Just because you were in that doesn't mean you're bad. It's got like 7,000 members now. It's gotten bigger. It's the steering committee that's really bad news. And, work for Goldman Sachs and stuff. But, I mean, we've got to be ready for people in the system to promote liberty. You have to go off what they do now. And he promoted freedom, when he was married to his wife. So I'm just having a discussion here openly, I guess, with myself and you, the listeners, about Rand Paul, about Ted Cruz. It's time to discuss that. I just have known Rand Paul since 1996. Know him quite well. And I'll just leave it at that. And I know he's for real. I mean, he plays a little bit of politics and stuff to get positioned to run for president. But you think about him versus a Dianne Feinstein or versus an Al Gore or something like that. I mean, it's night and day. It's total night and day. And he's willing to get up there and take his licks and be attacked. They're going to try every dirty trick in the known universe on him. And part of me says, hey, let the Democrats get back in and just wreck everything instead of let Rand Paul get in, and they'll end up blaming him for everything. But, justice be done, may the heavens fall. I don't want to go that route of, let's just let it get worse and worse, and that'll wake people up. No, we can't survive it. We can't get a John Boehner type or a Jeb Bush type, another neocon. I know Boehner isn't running, but, Chris Christie. We need somebody who really doesn't want to wreck the country and isn't going to play games. I mean, Rand Paul says, yeah, I'm all for bombing ISIS, but I don't trust you to bomb them because you've been funding them, Obama.
And hey, John McCain, why are you hanging out with Al-Qaeda? I mean, hey, the drug war is a fraud, and hey, the NSA is a fraud. I mean, Rand Paul is better than Ted Cruz. It's just a fact. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Infowars.com.
We're on the march.